And final thing I'll say is, I've been getting asked about this idea of this Elon Musk political party. And I just want to say, I think Elon Musk has been, one of the most innovative entrepreneurs, not just in our country's history, but probably in world history. And I think he's done a lot. I think he's got a lot more left in the tank, obviously. I appreciated his efforts in the 2024 election. And I've been a big supporter of the idea of the Doge because the federal government's spending way too much money. We've adopted that in Florida, even though we have a budget surplus and are paying down debt, and we have the second lowest spending per capita of all 50 states. But yet we're still doing it in Florida because you always want to do better. But when Elon was in at Doge, there were grants that had been done that we rejected in Florida. We would call Elon, they would cancel it immediately. We sent over almost $1 billion to where they were able to recover. There were DEI, there was stuff we're not doing. And so there was a lot that was done that was very, very positive. And so I think I've been a big fan of what he's done. The problem is when you do another party, especially if you're running on some of the issues that he talks about, that would end up, if he funds Senate candidates and House candidates in competitive races, that would likely end up meaning the Democrats would win all the competitive Senate and House races. And so, look, I'm a Republican. I don't want to see that happen. I think if you want to, get involved and hold accountable, we do have a problem in the Republican Party with these D.C. congressmen. They always run saying there's out of control spending and they're going to spend less, and they never do it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your independent political analyst here to break down America's most talked about political developments with facts, context, and a balanced perspective. Today, I'm reacting to a recent political speech that's been making rounds, one that touches on Elon Musk, the idea of a new political party, federal spending, the dysfunction in Washington, and proposed structural reforms like a balanced budget amendment and term limits for Congress. There's a lot to unpack here. Let's get into it. So first, the speaker, presumably a Republican leader, addresses the growing curiosity around the idea of an Elon Musk political party.
And so there's a gap between the campaign rhetoric and then the performance. Elon was doing Doge, and a lot of Congress didn't want anything to do with actually adopting the Doge cuts, just like they haven't wanted to adopt the Trump executive orders on immigration and all these other things, which I think you have to adopt in law if you want them to have staying power. So I think there is a lot of frustration with the gap between the rhetoric in their district and the performance once they get into D.C. But the way you do that is expose that in a primary and show that there's another way forward. Honestly, if you're concerned about the debt, I wouldn't even worry about that, because I don't think just electing a few better people is going to change the trajectory. We need the incentives in Washington are going to lead to these outcomes, really regardless of the outcome of elections at this point. So you need to do a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and you can do that through the states. You can do it through Article 5. We've got 28 states that have approved this. There's another 4 or 5 that are on the docket. Once you hit 34, then you write an amendment, and then the states are able to ratify that. You need 3/4. If Elon wanted to weigh in on that and work on those state legislatures, he would have a monumental impact on doing this. And we also need term limits for members of Congress. And so you can do both of those things. But I think if you did that, all of a sudden, that moves the needle on both of those issues. Under Article 5 of the Constitution, you are going to see major positive changes, but you have to change the incentives and the structures up there, because we've seen it time and time again. You have the rhetoric, same results. You have the rhetoric, same results when it comes to debt. And so this is one way to do it, and it's within our grasp to do it. Florida's already certified both of those. Term limits has really gained a lot of steam over the last couple years. There was only 1 or 2 states that had done it like 5 or 6 years ago. Now you've got a lot more. Balanced budget amendment has been out there for a long time. A lot of people have wanted to do it. That's very close. And if you do those things, then I think you actually have a chance to really change Congress. But as it is now, even if somehow a third party could elect some people that were, so-called fiscal conservative, I don't think it would even move the needle, even if they got elected. And we know that they wouldn't get elected because it's really one of two parties. So you're either just taking votes away from one side or the other is really how it ends up doing. So, I'm a believer in trying to work this stuff out through the Republican process rather than do that. But I think even more than that, doing these amendments, which are within our grasp, it doesn't require Congress. You can do it through Article 5 and do it through the states. That would have a huge impact on the trajectory of the country. In the late 90s, they were one vote away in the U.S. Senate from passing a balanced budget amendment. It would have had to have been ratified by the states, but I think it would have been at the time. Now, we had a budget surplus federally at the time. Just imagine how different our fiscal trajectory would be right now had that balanced budget amendment passed 26, 27 years ago. I mean, we wouldn't be having some of these debates about all the mounting debt. And so we were very close to doing it. And I think because we were in pretty good fiscal shape, I think people just said it was better to not, the swing votes. Well, why tie hands? Things are going well. But had they done that, man, we would be in really good shape. So let's do a balanced budget amendment, tie the hands of the big spenders, term limit them so they can't ensconce themselves in office for decades like Nancy Pelosi. I don't know why. I mean, like, if she were to run a hedge fund with her stock trades, I mean, man, she would make a lot of money. So why don't we do that? That is achievable, and especially, I mean, if somebody as significant as Elon wants to get in the game on that, he will have I think, very consequential impact on that, and I think would be just the type that could bring this across the finish line. And wouldn't we want to see these guys have some limits on how much damage that they can do? So I think Washington needs to be overhauled 100%. I just don't think a third party is going to do it, but I do think these amendments can make a big, big difference. Okay, thanks everyone. God bless.
Now, whether Musk is seriously considering forming a party or just influencing from the sidelines, the notion itself speaks volumes about public frustration with both major parties. The speaker praises Musk for his innovation and political involvement, particularly in the 2024 election cycle. At a fair point, Musk has used his platform to sway public discourse on everything from free speech to fiscal policy. But here's the catch. The speaker then strongly cautions against forming a third party, warning that it would split the conservative vote and effectively hand key House and Senate races to Democrats. This is a classic critique of third-party efforts in the U.S., and it's not without merit. Our winner-take-all electoral system makes it incredibly difficult for third parties to compete without functioning as spoilers. We've seen this with Ross Perot in 1992 and Ralph Nader in 2000. The math usually favors the two-party system. But here's my take. The concern about vote splitting is real, but so is a growing hunger for political alternatives. Millions of Americans, especially younger and independent voters, feel unrepresented by both parties. If someone like Elon Musk were to get involved, the real question is, could he disrupt that pattern or just repeat history? Next, the speaker makes a pointed critique of his own party, particularly Republican members of Congress, who campaign on reducing spending, but consistently fail to deliver once elected. That's an important and honest acknowledgement. The gap between campaign rhetoric and governing action is one of the reasons trust in government is an all-time low. As a neutral observer, I respect the speaker's transparency here. But let's also be clear, this isn't just a Republican issue. Both parties have contributed to national debt and often kicked the can down the road on major fiscal reforms. Still, this admission matters, because until elected officials start calling out their own side, it's hard to imagine real accountability. The speaker also references DOGE, which appears to be shorthand for a federal cost-cutting initiative aligned with Musk. He praises Florida's fiscal conservatism, rejecting grants with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, strings attached, and credits Musk with helping cancel them when requested. Whether or not you agree with the rejection of those funds, this segment highlights an important reality. States can act as laboratories of policy, pushing back on federal overreach or budgetary inefficiency. Again, from a neutral standpoint, it's good to see examples of coordination between state governments and influential figures. But it's also essential to scrutinize what is being rejected and why. If it's purely ideological, it could come at the cost of key services. Now, here's where the speech gets especially compelling. The speaker shifts focus from electoral politics to structural reform, calling for a balanced budget amendment and term limits for members of Congress, both via Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. For those unfamiliar, Article 5 allows 2/3 of state legislatures, 34 out of 50, to call for a constitutional convention, bypassing Congress. It's rare, but entirely constitutional. Florida has already approved both proposals, and according to the Speaker, 28 states are on board with the budget amendment, with more expected. From a political analysis standpoint, this is a big deal. These kinds of reforms don't just tinker around the edges, they aim to change the rules of the game entirely. Now, do I think a balanced budget amendment would solve all of our fiscal problems? Not necessarily. It depends on how it's written. If it's too rigid, it could prevent necessary spending during recessions or emergencies. But if crafted wisely, it could indeed instill more discipline in federal budgeting. As for term limits, there's broad public support for this across party lines. But the devil is in the details. How long should the limits be? And would it empower unelected bureaucrats and lobbyists even more, since they stick around while elected officials cycle out? Still, the broader point is valid. Washington is structurally set up to reward incumbency, inertia, and overspending. Changing that requires systemic intervention. One striking moment is when the Speaker reflects on the failed balanced budget amendment vote in the late 1990s, just one vote short in the Senate. Back then, the U.S. had a surplus, and the urgency wasn't there. But fast forward to today, with national debt over $34 trillion, and that missed opportunity looms large. It's a sobering reminder that the right structural reforms often don't feel urgent until it's too late. To wrap things up, the Speaker argues that third parties are unlikely to succeed and that meaningful change won't come from electing a few better people. Instead, he pushes for structural reform through the states. And you know what? He has a point. Electing good people matters. But as long as the system incentivizes short-term thinking, lobbyist influence, and re-election over problem solving, the cycle continues. Structural reforms like term limits and budget constraints won't fix everything, but they do offer a serious path toward restoring public trust and shifting incentives. Would Elon Musk be an asset in this fight? Potentially. He has reach, resources, and the ability to capture public attention in ways traditional politicians simply can't. But whether Musk jumps in or not, this conversation signals something deeper. Americans are tired of performative politics. They want results. If you found this breakdown helpful, let me know in the comments. Do you think a balanced budget amendment and term limits could work? Would you support a third party if Elon Musk led it? Or do you think reform has to come from within the system? Don't forget to subscribe, and hit the bell for more nonpartisan analysis of the issues shaping our democracy. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and stay engaged.